And I know, Stephen A., this is a transcendent athlete that came onto the scene 95, 96, 97, wins the Masters. So you've been around with what he's done in his career, not only within the game of golf, but in the world of sport. What is your reaction when you hear this latest setback for Tiger?
Well, you're devastated. You're devastated for him. Your heart goes out to him and his family, obviously, his children. You want to make sure that everybody's okay. You want to make sure that he's okay. In terms of his, his excellence, how great he was, how great he is as a golfer. I mean, the man won the Masters 5 times, for crying out loud. In 1997, when he burst onto the scene, shot 18 under to win the Masters in 1997, we knew he had arrived because his father told us, here he comes, and he will be on the scene, and he will be a huge, huge individual for many, many years to come. He will be a transcendent figure, transcending the world of golf and going beyond that. Obviously, he won the Masters again in 2001, 2002, did it again in 2005, but what he did in 2019 was absolutely Herculean, considering all the obstacles that he had faced since his personal issues, and then obviously subsequently back injuries, knees, and things of that nature. To see him come back and to win a 15th major, to end up having, tying Sam Snead and winning 82 PGA Tour events. You just can't say enough about how great and phenomenal he was. I know that as a black man, I was never really interested in golf until Tiger Woods came along. And that's really, really where it resonates when you talk about him being a transcendent figure, because he came into your home, he came into your living room, he competed in a world that a lot of black folks felt were distant and apart from themselves, and they weren't really invited to be a part of, per se. And then you saw Tiger burst onto the scene, and then all of a sudden everybody was interested in golf. You had guys in the world of football and basketball and beyond wanting to get themselves some custom-made clubs, wanting to get their hands on some clubs just to go to the driving range or to go on the course to be a Tiger Woods. So he's definitely a transcendent figure. We know despite the trials and tribulations he's endured, he's truly, truly one of the great ones. And we wish him nothing but the best. To be quite honest with you, I'm sitting here today and I'm not, trying to talk about an epitaph or trying to eulogize him or anything. I'm happy he's alive. Mm-hmm. I'm happy that what we're hearing about is that leg injury. Obviously, his career is a huge question mark right now, considering the recent back surgery that he had, etc. But in the end, when you hear that it's his legs that are injured, and you're hearing that it's not necessarily fatal, that this is not something that took his life, you're very, very relieved, particularly considering the fact that we're a little bit more than a year removed from losing the great Kobe Bryant and that tragic fatal helicopter crash and what have you. Just what this year has entailed, you're just relieved that Tiger Woods is alive, and then surgery, and they're talking about surgery on his legs as opposed to him having lost his life. Thank God that doesn't appear to be the case.
Yeah, and I'd mentioned that when Ramona Shelburne was on with us, and that's, you're 100% right. The fact that he is in surgery and he is alive, there was so much eerily similar situations with the helicopter footage and seeing this destruction around one of our great pro athletes. And in fact, Tiger Woods taken out of the car, put in surgery. We'll continue to update it as we know. But Stephen A., you touched on something that I want to get to, because if we're being honest, pre-97, the game of golf was a stuffy old white guy sport. Tiger is raised, and you can find video clips of him saying it as a young boy and as a teenager. He knew that he was tasked with breaking the racial barrier of a sport at clubs and golf courses where he was not allowed to play. And in 1997, when he wins that Masters and Jim Nantz makes the call and he calls it a win for the ages, not only did that mean that we had this new phenom in golf, but Stephen A., it meant that people that looked like him could go to a golf course, could play golf, could succeed at golf. How much has he meant to the black community in a sport that for so long it was like, you know what, this is a country club, stay away, this is not your sport?
Oh, it meant everything. I mean, you're talking to an individual right now that has been a journalist for over 27 years, covering the world of sports. And I've never even known anybody that participated in golf, nor did I care until Tiger Woods came along. It's just that simple. As a black man, we didn't feel invited, per se. Obviously, you had the right to compete. You had the right to participate. But when a sport appears to have ostracized disenfranchised communities, at least it gives that impression the bottom line is that you're not going to see yourself gravitating towards that. You can look at the sport of tennis. Arthur Ashe participated, but when Venus and Serena Williams came along, all of a sudden you had black folks paying attention more than ever before to the world of tennis. Well, the same is applicable to the sport of golf. That wasn't the case with football. It certainly hasn't been the case with basketball, but in a sport like golf, you definitely got that impression. And then Tiger Woods came along and you found everybody rooting about Tiger. They didn't even know who his competitors were. They didn't know about Jack Nicklaus and his 18 majors, and they didn't care about all of that stuff. What they cared about was what Tiger Woods was doing. And you ultimately became more informed because you saw a guy that was nothing short of great, that looked like he was going to shatter records, and you were looking at the records to see what records he would ultimately shatter. That was the mentality that it was. If it were not for Tiger, you wouldn't have cared about all of those other things. You wouldn't have cared about Sam Snead and what he had accomplished with, his 80 or 81 PGA Tour wins. You wouldn't have cared about Jack Nicklaus' 18 majors. You wouldn't have cared about those things. You cared about it because you knew that Tiger was coming for all of those records and a black man was going to knock him down. That was the mentality that you had. That was how you viewed it as a black person coming out of a black community. And that's the way it has always been. And no matter what, you look at Tiger Woods with an incredible level of pride because you think about how the sport has grown before our very eyes, how popularized it has become, the money, the revenue that has been generated by the sport. Tiger's he's at the front of the line with all of that, making that happen. If it wasn't for Tiger Woods, one could easily argue there's no way on earth that the sport would have generated the same kind of revenue it has generated over the years. It certainly would not have gotten the ratings, the television ratings that it had received. It wouldn't have the interest, emanating from various communities throughout this nation, not just the white community, even the black community, the Hispanic community, the Asian American community. The list goes on and on. When you are a transcendent figure, just touched with greatness, everybody's going to support you. And that's the way it was for Tiger Woods. That's the way it has always been. And we're hoping that we'll get an opportunity to continue to root for and cheer for him as time moves forward.